What's up, guys? Wanted to come to you and talk to you about who I think shined the most in Star Wars: The Clone Wars TV show. So, I've been watching The Clone Wars again. It's on Netflix. I'm super excited about that. It's my favorite cartoon ever made. I love it. It's got 6 seasons. If you haven't watched it and you're a Star Wars fan, what are you doing with your life? Go watch it. It's great. The movie's good too, so I highly recommend those. Anyways, but one thing I love about the series is that it really highlights several people that you just don't really get enough of in the movies, and some of them barely show up, or if at all. Um, so I'm going to give you six people that I think that the Clone Wars TV show did amazing at introducing. So first off, Darth Maul. So we don't get much of Darth Maul in episode 1, and of course he dies at the end. I'm sure everybody's seen that movie. Um, it's really sad because he had so much potential. Everybody was ready for him, and I'm so glad that they picked him up in Clone Wars. So spoiler, he survives. After he gets cut in half, he uses his pure Sith rage to keep himself alive until he can get to a planet. I forget what it's called. It's a junk planet. Kessel. He gets to Kessel. And in Kessel, he is able to put a bunch of droid parts on the bottom half of his body, and so he kind of becomes like this spider person. Spider-Man. He's the Spider-Man of the Star Wars universe. Anyways, so, and you really get to see a whole bunch with him. He runs around for a long time. He fights Emperor Palpatine at one point, fights Obi-Wan and Anakin a bunch. And, of course, his hatred for Obi-Wan is really a highlight of the show. And they end it with Rebels. A really awesome fight in Rebels, and I haven't watched Rebels yet, but I've seen that fight on YouTube, and just because I needed to, and it's excellent. It's excellent. So I really love that Darth Maul got to shine there. Get to see his brother. He's brought back by these witches and people, and just a lot of cool stuff going on with him. And I think he ends up taking over Mandalore and fighting with Obi-Wan. It's excellent. So never fear, one of the greatest Sith of all time gets to shine in that show, and I love it. I love it. I don't think I've gotten to him yet. Of course, I've seen it all before, so I know it's coming. But yeah, so I love Darth Maul. I love his fighting style, and his story arc in the show is really good. He has this hatred for Obi-Wan because he was dethroned, and hatred for Palpatine for betraying him, and all sorts of stuff. So really excellent. I love that character. So just a great story. So number 2, I guess number 5. So we had 6, now we're on 5. My 5th favorite character from the Clone Wars is Luminara Unduli. She is awesome. So if you don't know who that is, she's the green lady. She has like the black curtain hat thing with a green face, got a little goatee. Well, it's not goatee. She's got like little tattoos right here. It's really cool. Anyway, she's awesome. I really like her character. I really knew nothing about her because of the movies, and she doesn't show up except for in like episode 2 or something. You barely see her at all in episode 1 through 3. And I think she supposedly dies on Kashyyyk. But yeah, I don't know. So, but she's awesome in this show. There's a kind of a squab between her and Anakin, because Anakin is very unrefined and she's very refined, and so they go well together. It's interesting. She doesn't approve of some of his methods, and he thinks she's too by the book, because she's very. I guess sometimes he looks. He kind of feels um, unintelligent when he's around her because she's very by the book, and she is very well thought out, very planned, and she thinks that his leadership is very brash, and she doesn't like how reckless he is sometimes. And it's really an interesting contrast. One of my favorite episodes with them too. I think it's called the Droid Factory, and they're creating an ambush for their Padawans to go. And honestly, there's a fight between Ahsoka and her, or Ahsoka and Anakin, and I think it makes zero sense because of all that has happened before that time. But they're probably rotating writers, and writers are repeating things. But anyways, so Anakin and Luminara are walking across a bridge, making a huge diversion, and she's he's like, that's a lot of droids, and she's like, well, it is a droid factory. And he's like, well, as long as we kill or destroy them faster than they can make them, then we come out on top. And she's like, I love your simple logic, Anakin. It's great. Well, she probably calls him Skywalker because she's very proper. I love it. I love it. She's hilarious. I like the episode where she and Ahsoka have to fight together to fight Ventress, and she's basically being very strict with Ahsoka, and Ahsoka doesn't like it because she's used to Anakin, and I really think she's great. She's really one of the characters that shined well in that show because honestly, like, nobody knew who she was. She plays almost zero parts in the movies, and I think she was on the Geonosis for the Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones, but that's really all you see of her. She might show up in one of those scenes in Episode 3, but that's it. I mean, she's almost non-existent. She's there, and you see her, but unless you read the books or whatnot, you have no clue who this lady is. So I really love her character in the show. It's really great, a lot of fun. I really like how they've developed her in the show. So we've got, let's see, Darth Maul, Luminara Unduli. Number 4, my fourth favorite character from that I feel like really shines in Star Wars, Clone Wars, is Ki-Adi-Mundi. I love him. He does a little bit more. You see him a little bit more because he's on the Jedi Council. He pilots and stuff, and I think what is that place? He doesn't go to Utapau. He goes to a different place. Maybe it is Utapau. Anyways, he goes to a more snowy place, and you see him fighting. That's where he dies. But you see him talk a little bit, but that's about all he does. But he is one of the greater generals in the Jedi Council, and he's very, very intelligent, very good sword fighter. You wouldn't get that from the movies. Honestly, a lot of these guys, you really think they're weak because of the movies, but it just really goes to show how powerful some of these Jedi that survived are. Like Yoda or Obi-Wan. Anyways, I like him. He has a lot of dealings with Obi-Wan, and a few dealings with Anakin. And Plo Koon gets a little bit. You don't really get to see him a whole lot, as far as I can remember. But Ki-Adi-Mundi is a big general, and so you see him a good bit. Plo Koon's also a general, but Ki-Adi-Mundi, I guess if you'd never seen him, he's the guy with the pine, like the really pointed head. Interestingly, he's one of the only Jedi to get married. I think it's him, and it's because his species is he's allowed to get married because his species is near extinction, and so it's very vital that every one of them get married and have kids, so that their species is allowed to live. And so the Jedi Order allows him to get married for that purpose. Um, and it's just because the Jedi are sensible people. Um, but I really like his character. I think he's really interesting. He's drawn out as a really intelligent general. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I like Luminara better than Plo Koon. I mean, Ki-Adi-Mundi, but I like Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi in general. So I guess if it was going to go strictly based on the cartoon, I'd like Luminara better. But if we're talking about in general, I like Ki-Adi-Mundi because he's an awesome fighter. He's a really cool character in the Star Wars universe. Not that she isn't, but he shines outside of the Clone Wars because he's given a lot more time and screen time, and he's given a lot more coverage in the books, whereas Luminara is not. But in the Clone Wars, she probably shines more. So take that how you will. So I guess if you're just going by the cartoon, she would be number 4 and he would be number 5. But since I make the rules for my video, we'll make him number 4 and her number 5. And man, it's hard to choose. Like I like both of them. But anyways, so Ki-Adi-Mundi is number 4. Number 3 is gonna be Anakin. So I don't know, you're like, oh well, Anakin's all over the place, but you really don't get to see Anakin struggle with the dark side. He kind of comes across as like this whiny wimp of a character, and it's really sad because he's like really this powerful Jedi, really brilliant strategist, and he has a lot of semblance of Revan, and so it's really hard to see episode 2 and 3 without watching the cartoon show, because he really grows as a character so much. You see him straddle that fence, and there's times where he cares so much about Ahsoka that he wants to that he's willing to force choke somebody in secret so that he can get the information and save Ahsoka. And there's other times where he's definitely the bad cop, whereas Obi-Wan is a good cop. And so Anakin does what's necessary a lot of times, and that means using a lot of probably forbidden force powers against people. And there's one time where they're like, "How did you get this information?" And he's like, "It doesn't matter. I have it. Let's go." And I'm just like, it does matter. Like it really does. You really need to be careful what you're doing. But it really just shows like how he slowly fell over the years. How the Clone Wars really turned him away from the light side and more toward the dark side. And yeah, it's so good. Just really well done. You have little choice after little choice, and slowly it just becomes easier and easier for him to fall to the dark side. And so you end up where he's kind of a bright character in episode 2, but he's slowly being turned away toward the dark side of the Force because of his attachments. And there's this beautiful episode where it's the same episode where he's trying to save Ahsoka, and he's giving in a little to the dark side to save his Padawan because he refuses to let her die. And there's a few other times you see this building up to that point where he's just so attached to her that he's unwilling to let her die. And which is, I think, is great to an extent. And you see Luminara, who is almost seemingly giving up on her Padawan because she's willing to let her Padawan die. And she's like, it's not that I've given up, it's that I'm willing to move on. And so there's some interesting balance there. But I feel like with Anakin, you have this... well, in that episode, you see Anakin tell Ahsoka that everybody struggles with their attachments, and that's part of being a Jedi. And it kind of reminds me of, like, as a Christian, everybody struggles with temptation, you know, but what makes you good or evil is how you deal with that. And so similarly in the Jedi, how you deal with the lure to the dark side and the attachments that you have is what divides the light side and the dark side. And so that's really, really interesting that he's basically telling her that she needs to be careful with her attachments, but at the same time, he's willing to force choke somebody to save his attachments. So just some really good stuff there. I love how they develop Anakin. You slowly see him, and at the end even, you're just like, how does this guy become so dark? But you've seen all these seasons of him slowly giving more ground to the dark side. And there's certain points where you're just like, he'd never fall to the dark side. And then other points where you're like, well, this is how it happens, like right here. Like, these are the first steps he's taking. And so over the 6 seasons that is the Clone Wars, or the numerous years between episode 2 and 3, he's fallen further and further toward the dark side. And so really it just becomes an easy switch. It's just the same thing he's been doing all these years, starting from when he killed the Tusken Raiders, and you slowly see him veering off course. And so by episode 2, he's very close. He kind of starts down the path, and over the years he slowly gets farther away. And then as soon as things happen in episode 3, because he barely thinks when he kills Count Dooku, and then other things that happen in episode 3. Just they happen, and he doesn't have a lot of time to think. He kills Mace Windu, he cuts his hands off, and it's just like over and over again, he's slowly making these little choices that slowly bring him away to the dark side. And so I love it. It's amazing character development, really excellent. So number 2 is Obi-Wan. I love Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's my second favorite character in Star Wars. Of course, the first is Luke Skywalker, and if he were in there, he'd be number 1. But he's not in there because it's just the Clone Wars. So, but Obi-Wan, man, he has such a great character path. He has such a great story in Clone Wars. Between him facing Darth Maul off again, his banter with Grievous, with Count Dooku, with Ventress, which she's an awesome character too. I didn't mention her, but you get to see a lot of Grievous too. And I love Count Dooku. So all 3 of those, I really love seeing lots of them. But at least 2 of them get a lot of screen time. And as much as I like Asajj Ventress, I think she was perfect for the series. Maybe not so much for the movies. Honestly, you probably could have done without Grievous in the movie, but whatever. It is what it is. But Darth Maul, he's the big one that really got undercut. Like, he didn't get his full time that he should have gotten. And so I really wish they had given him more time. But Obi-Wan has all his stuff with Darth Maul, all his banter with the other villains. I love how he talks to them, and you really see him moving on from between episode 2 and episode 3. You really see how the war changes him, how you really dive more into his character than you do in the movies. And one of my favorite parts about his character, is really when he goes to Mandalore and he meets his old girlfriend, and he finally reveals that he would have left the Jedi Order just to be with this woman. That's how much he loves her. And but he says he's loyal to the Jedi Code, and so he can't because he's one, he says because she never asked, but 2, because he's loyal to the Code. He became a Jedi Knight. He's loyal to it. And I think after watching Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, and then Revenge of the Sith, you really can tell why he's okay with going to the desert in Tatooine. Because otherwise you're just like, why would he just become a hermit out in the desert? But he's lost so much in the span of Attack of the Episode 2, the TV show, and Episode 3. He's lost so much. He lost his girlfriend. He lost Ahsoka. He lost Anakin. He lost all the Jedi pretty much in the Jedi Order. And really, I feel like he feels like he's failed the Jedi. And so you really get a sense, just like Yoda did. You really get the sense of his failure, how he feels about what happened. And I think the tipping point for him, because he lost his girlfriend, but then he loses Anakin too. So he loses his girlfriend and his best friend, and it's just like I think that just cripples him, and so he's willing to go out and live in the desert for 20 years and become a hermit to protect, and also to protect Anakin's son, Luke. And so just some great stuff there. And I love to see the transition from like this kind of young Jedi Knight to like this seasoned Jedi Master, and just really excellent, really excellent. And then lastly, so we got Maul, we've got Luminara, we've got Kiadi, we've got Anakin, we've got Obi-Wan, and lastly, my number one favorite character in the Clone Wars TV show is Ahsoka Tano. Who else would it be? She was amazing. She's probably a fan favorite. The best character in that show, the best one that was created in that show. And I really would love to see an Ahsoka Tano movie. That would be amazing. And what I love the most is that she survived Order 66. You see her in Rebels, which I had to watch a few of the clips on YouTube. So when she fights Darth Vader at the end, because she's Anakin's Padawan, and then she grows up, and she kind of has an idea who Darth Vader is, but it's never fully realized until she fights him face to face and cuts part of his mask off and is able to see and hear him. And then she's like, "How could this be? Like, that's gotta be tough. It's gotta be real tough." And man, that's such a great. Well, I hadn't seen the whole episode, but the 5 minutes where she shows up and fights Darth Vader are amazing. But I like her because she carries the 2 lightsabers. She starts off with green, but then she ends up going to the two, and she carries them like backhanded. So I love that. She's not carrying them forward; she's carrying them back. And I really like that slicing fighting style. I think that's really cool. Kind of more of a knife fighting style. And then you have her whole story where she's basically becoming a lot like Anakin, but where Anakin goes to the dark side, she goes to the light side. And so she is also reckless, and she actually ends up quitting the Order because the Order doesn't trust her. And she's like, after all that I've done, like, you didn't just like ask for help. Like you didn't just ask for me. You tried to arrest me and assumed I'm guilty before I was proven innocent. And so instead of assumed innocent until proven guilty, and that's such a heartbreaking few episodes. And I think that's really what crippled the series, is losing her, because she was amazing. And she's an excellent character, done really well, and it's just heartbreaking to see what happens to her and how the Jedi Order fails her and sends her into exile. And it's really, really touching, really heartbreaking, and yeah, and in a sense, kind of you feel like Anakin feels like the Order failed him in one way. She feels like they failed her in a different way. And yet, interesting, like the 2 characters that are very much alike. One falls to the dark side, one falls to the light side, and just really interesting stuff going on there. And I love her character. She's definitely a fan favorite. Definitely in my top 10 Jedi of all time. And might be might even be top 5 because I think it'd be like Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and then probably her because she's excellent. She's amazing. She's a lot of fun. Like you go, like I think I was in high school when she was coming on. She's just a little bit younger than me, but still, like I could identify like being a kid in the Jedi Order. That'd be a lot of fun. So, just a really fun character overall. And if you have not watched Clone Wars, it's such a good show. It's such a good show. I highly recommend it. If you're older and you don't like kiddie shows, it's not super kiddie. It's got a good story. So some people might feel like they're too old for it, but you know, uh, it's not so childish that it's gonna bother most people. I think so. Really great show, really amazing. Love all the characters in there. There's so many other characters that are good. Like Yoda gets time to shine sometimes, and then a bunch of random characters. The librarian gets some time to shine, although she didn't seem as grumpy in this as she's supposed to be. But whatever. So it's such a great show. There's so much of the Star Wars universe getting thrown in there. They deal a lot with the essence of the Force, and they end up with like the three fates or furies, and that's really weird, but it's in there. They end up dealing with magic and witchcraft, and that's crazy. But that was the only part I didn't like about the show. Going into the witchcraft, it just doesn't work with the Force, the universe. So the only witches and witchcraft should be the Jedi or the Sith, or somebody in the middle. Shouldn't be like somebody with a different kind of witchcraft. But anyways, love the show. Let me know what you think. Who are your favorite characters? Who you thought got the best screen time out of that show? And I will catch you later. So it's been a crazy weekend. Haven't been able to do a whole lot. I'm leaving town tomorrow, so not sure if I'll get any videos this week, but I will do my best. And I will have to wait till next week to get some more Yoda videos out, but they're coming. I've got them all getting them planned out. Should be a lot of fun. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and I will catch you next time. Peace.